I don't know what I'm doing right now, but I'm not vegan anymore.
À-bas-le-ciel.
While I was in college, I challenged my mom to be vegan for 1 week, and she loved it, and she stuck with it for 6 months. The last month of her being vegan, she was like, this sucks. Like, it completely sucks. Yes, it's fun to try new foods and stuff, but I've never gained more weight in my entire life. I feel bloated all the time, and it's just not working for me. And I was like, you know what? You tried it, totally fine. Why don't you just eat what you want to eat? So she incorporated chicken and eggs back into her diet, no dairy, and she cut out a lot of the carbs that we were eating, like a lot of the grains and she cut down on her fruit intake, and there's just a lot of stuff to be cut down on because when you're high carb, low fat, it's so much carbs. She cut down on that, and she said she instantly felt better. My dad is also high carb, low fat vegan because of my mom trying the challenge. He tried the challenge too. He is still vegan, and he also says the same thing. He's like, I've never gained more weight in my entire life, but his stats are really healthy. His cholesterol, his blood pressure, all of that is super healthy. So it just doesn't really make sense. I always had that in the back of my mind, like, is that happening to me? Like, whatever. But I never really noticed it. And then I was watching Sarah's Days vlogs I don't know, I watch her vlogs like every day. She was explaining in a video why she stopped being vegan, and pretty much she said that she was bloated all the time, me. She felt sick a lot, me. And she just didn't always have energy, me. And she didn't really have muscle anymore, me. And I didn't really want to admit all that stuff to myself because I was like, vegan's great, and I preach it. Like, I'm not annoying. Like, I'm not one of those vegans that are like, be vegan, and I shove it down their throat. I'm not like that. But I'm annoying in the sense that, like, I talk about my diet so much because I love it so much. So I kind of felt like embarrassed to say if it wasn't working for me anymore. Because it worked amazing for me for the first like 9 months or so, and then it just sort of stopped working. I think my body just got used to all the carbs, and instead of shedding it off like it did, the carbs have just sort of clung to me, and they sort of stick to me because I eat so much sugar and so much grains and breads and all that good stuff that vegans are supposed to have, that it's not doing the same results for me that it used to anymore. It's just sticking on to me, and I feel like I've just gained so much weight. I know in my last vlog I was like, I never had more energy, all this stuff, but I was just sort of embarrassed to say. And honestly, on that day, I didn't even think of not being vegan anymore because I was like, this is how I eat. The past 3 days or so have been kind of tricky for me because I'm in this mindset where I'm like, well, now what do I eat? Because, I mean, I kind of have this mentality with food that, like, yes, it's fuel, so I don't want to eat crap, but I want to eat what is right for my body. So I do want to eat whole foods, but I don't want to eat meat, and I also don't want to eat dairy. So pretty much where that brings me is that yesterday morning and the morning before that, I ate eggs, and they were really good.
For me, this is a very clear case of there being a gap, a visible, recognizable gap between what I want to believe and what I have to believe. I do not want to believe that people like this young woman are dead weight for veganism, are a liability for veganism, are holding veganism back instead of propelling it ahead. I don't want to believe that there's an invidious division between ethical vegans and health vegans, people who are just motivated by a sense of their own health and well-being to get involved with veganism as a diet or as a movement. I want to believe that we're all on the same side and we're all pursuing the same goal, even if we're pursuing that goal for different reasons, or even if people initially get involved for different reasons. And I should say here that the health-based vegans, for want of a better term, they really fall into two very different categories. There are people who get involved with it. Look, there are probably a million categories, but I'm only going to talk about 2 out of a million right now, okay? 2 of the categories, 2 types among many of health-based vegans are those who, get bad news from the doctor, where the doctor or someone sits down with them and says, look, you've got a chronic heart condition, you have advanced atherosclerosis, you have one of a long list of health problems that could be improved if you can seriously sit down, discipline yourself, adopt a strict vegan diet, these symptoms could be alleviated or reversed. Your quality of life can improve. That is one category, totally, utterly different from this young woman. And this young woman, in her own terms, she describes her own flirtation with veganism entirely in terms of a feeling. She wanted to feel great. She wanted to lose weight and feel great. But she had no health problems. She obviously has no concern about cholesterol. And she's now taken up eating chicken eggs, which nobody should eat chicken eggs. There's absolutely no basis in health sciences for anyone to ever eat a chicken egg. Chicken eggs are, in terms of the current state of science in 2017, chicken eggs are close to being banned or put on the same list of things like cigarettes. They just absolutely nobody should eat if we're talking about health, for the sake of your health. There's no reason for chicken eggs to be in the human diet. All ethical considerations aside.
I ate eggs, and they were really good. And I noticed immediately after I ate eggs, I stopped bloating. I pretty much have woken up bloated every day for the past year. But today I'm not bloated at all. That long explanation is me saying, I don't know what I'm doing right now, but I'm not vegan anymore.
So she's making that decision in a completely impulsive, emotional way. And even though her engagement with veganism is under the heading of health, I have to say, from the sound of it, both her joining the club and her quitting or exiting, they both seem to be really impulsive, emotional decisions based on how she feels, right? It's not based on something like cholesterol, or again, you wouldn't be eating chicken eggs. It's about cholesterol. It's not based on something measurable, blood sugar levels, if you have diabetes or something like this, or, any number of other measurable health problems. It's really based on a subjective feeling of being tired, feeling of not being full of energy, not being happy, not being as energetic and ebullient as she imagined she should be on a vegan diet. Now look, to my knowledge, this young woman is 18 years old. It's possible she didn't update her description and she's now 19. We're all born ignorant. And the reality of health and hygiene and the human diet, there are a lot of technical details that go into stuff nobody is born knowing. I don't know how many times I've sat down and had to explain to a fellow vegan, you cannot eat beans straight out of the can. Even if the can says ready to eat. Okay? You're talking about something like kidney beans, so-called baked beans that are white beans in sugar that makes them brown in color. Molasses changes the color to a brown. Most of the beans that are commonly available in the Western world, you need to cook at a high temperature for a serious amount of time, or else you will indeed get bloating. You will get indigestion of one kind or another. And many, many, many white Western people, including people who had PhDs, people who were older and more mature than they are really reluctant to believe that. They want to believe that beans, again, the types of beans we eat in the West, are just like a ripe piece of fruit you can take off a tree and sink your teeth into and digest with no problems. And they're not. Beans are tough, and you need to kind of cook the hell out of them to make them digestible. Now, why do I raise this example? Complaints about bloating are real. The causes for that bloating will probably be a handful of misunderstandings about food of a totally technical, totally boring nature, like, maybe you're taking adzuki beans and you're tossing them in boiling water for only 2 minutes, the same way you boil pasta. Right? A lot of people do that. They'll take a hard adzuki bean, they'll just cook it till it's soft. They think it's like pasta. Pasta, you can cook pasta if it's a rolling boil. You can cook pasta for 30 seconds. You throw it in the boiling water. If it's single serving for a single person, you pull it out of the boiling water and it's already soft and ready to eat. Right? Adzuki beans don't play that. With some fava beans, any of those beans, you will get horrible indigestion. If you cook them just enough so that they're soft to the teeth, you can be in for really terrible bloating and side effects. This is only one example. The reality is that if you're an ethical vegan, you start off with the perception that you cannot eat meat anymore, you cannot eat dairy or eggs, and then you're going to figure out how to make the vegan diet work for you. And it's not easy. In Saskatchewan, it is not easy. Depending on where you are in terms of the climate and the ecology and the food culture, for most of us, it is not easy. If you're an 18-year-old kid, you don't particularly have a background in these things, you probably didn't have a grandmother who taught you how to boil beans, it's not easy. There's a sense in which I can sympathize with this 18-year-old kid who felt listless, a lack of energy, and bloating and indigestion, and who gave up being vegan and went back to eating chicken eggs. There's a sense, because we're all born ignorant, and I know what it's like. Okay, I know what it's like to struggle with those same factors. But the reason why it's so depressing for me to behold is I want to believe that these people are on our side. I want to believe that the health-based vegans, the vegans who are just motivated by their health, whether for a heart condition or weight loss or this much more impressionistic and subjective sense of being energetic, I want to believe they're on our side. And what YouTube basically forces me to see face to face through this glowing plastic screen again and again is that they're not on our side. They eat our diet, but they're not a part of the movement. In a lot of ways, they represent the antithesis of everything we believe in. Because veganism is not about your own happiness. It's not about, buying a chicken egg from a factory farm because you think it'll pep you up. That's so surreal. That's so unthinkable to me. Even though I can recognize all the things she's struggling with. And I can only imagine what her perspective on the world must be as an 18-year-old. And she's basically trying to make her living by showing off her face and her body on YouTube, on Instagram, on social media. That's what she's trying to do with her career. There must be a lot of pressure on her to look as good as possible and feel as good as possible and talk all the time about how good she looks and how great she feels. And when you don't feel that way, you must go in. I assume she goes into a kind of panic. She's got to change something. She's got to find a way forward.
I want to be paleo-based, but honestly, I just want to eat whole foods.
I don't want to believe that these people are politically my enemies. But her philosophy, and I think she represents a whole lot of people who are inside the movement without being a positive part of the movement these days, her perspective is, if it makes you feel good, do it. And that's why the minute the diet didn't make her parents feel so good, she told her mom, okay, go back to eating meat. And her mom did. And for her, veganism just is one more fad diet in that category. She became vegan because she wanted or expected it to make her feel great. And she did it just as one example of something she did to make herself feel great. And then as soon as it didn't make her feel so good anymore, she was on to the next fad diet, chasing that feeling. She's acting off emotion and chasing a mood. Moods slip away from you, kid. They come and go. She was talking openly in that video about maybe she's going to try a paleo diet next. So it's just one fad diet or another, right? Maybe you should try cocaine if that's really what it's about. If what you want is just to feel great, is lose weight and feel great, combination of cocaine and intestinal parasites work wonders for you, kid. You wouldn't believe. But look, all joking aside, that's the really strange sense in which these people, I want to believe that we're all part of the same movement and working for the same future. But we're not. People like her just want to feel great and lose weight, and then they pick up veganism because of how it makes them feel, and they will drop it just as quick for that same reason. And somewhere off camera, out of sight and out of mind, millions of chickens are born and living their whole lives in a steel cage, waiting to die. Countless millions of gallons of water are wasted producing food that is unhealthy and unnecessary, and putting billions of animals through nasty, brutish, short lives of suffering. Developing, the world's most terrifying antibiotic-resistant diseases, destroying our rivers and our air quality and all the rest of it. But yes, fundamentally, if your view is factory farming has got to end, and I've got to do my part, no matter how puny or trivial or tiny, no matter how powerless I may feel, I've got to do my part to help bring about the end of factory farming. If that's your perspective, then you have a moral commitment to that. And then you try to figure out how to make a vegan diet work for you. And instead, these people who are just acting off emotion, they're only in it to get that glow. And if the glow fades or flickers, or they're not boiling their beans right and they're waking up with indigestion and bloating, they're going to chase that high with the paleo diet, or I guess whatever is on the cover of Cosmopolitan magazine this week. I don't want to believe it, but I have to.
À-bas-le-ciel.